Some of the patterns within the 20 plus patterns for types up uh, are what we refer to as single patterns or single line patterns. They're basically lowest or highest patterns. For example, Zip Zion, when it's lowest and going up, you're in an uptrend until it disappears underneath some of the other indicator lines. And 99.9% of the time, that's an accurate statement. You can just bank on it. Same is true when it's highest and going down. You can just bank on it until it disappears underneath some indicator lines, or until a day that you see a signal. Uh, you know, Sometimes it'll remain lowest, or excuse me, it'll remain highest when it's at the bottom, but then you can get a strong movement up the next day, but normally you can catch it the next morning if you so choose. But typically on those, when I follow those each day, as I look at them and I see that that next day it would probably disappear, that's when I would get out anyway. Other patterns like the yellow twins, that would be the zip yellow and the power yellow. When they're both lowest and going up, you're in an uptrend. When they're both highest and going down, you're in a downtrend. Zip yellow is zip blue is the same way. And in this example right here, I have zip blue lowest in between the two green lines. And keep in mind, the way you set this up in the code for finding the very first day that zip blue is lowest is you set up a indicator with you just condition one would be a zip uh, blue is lowest, and then you say 1 day ago with your square brackets with one in between it. And then you set up condition two that zip blue is lowest, but it's today, it's not 1 day ago. So you basically write it as if condition one, which is zip blue yesterday, equals false, then you know that zip blue lowest as condition one is false. And then the second condition, you go and condition two, which is zip blue lowest today. So then you're catching the very first day that the zip blue line would be lowest. And in this case here, we have about 5 days. It goes up, it ends up gapping up that last day. And that's somewhat of a coincidence, I think, because it's not the blue lowest blue that results in that. Although we do know that by hanging on to this in this particular move, you could capture that gap up, and it's pretty decent. It was a couple bucks. There's another one over here. And this green vertical line here is June 29th, 2017. You can see that today is July 6th, 2017. And same case is the situation here. If I expand this out a little bit, we'll see that we have a nice gap up. Between the two vertical lines, we're capturing the very first day that the gap occurred. That the zip blue was lowest, and at the end the gap occurred in this particular case, both of them on the last day. Now I'm going to slide this back and show you why. This is the first one here in March of 2017, and as you can see down here in the power chart, power blue, pink, and white crossed over the orange line. And whenever you get a crossover, especially with multiple lines, you end up getting good results. Now that occurred on the day before the gap. So this is that we don't talk about it a whole lot, but what this is a crossover gap. you'll have the power 4 or the power 3 typically. In this case, it's the power 3 because you can see yellow has been traveling up above orange for quite a while. Obviously, when that happens, the result is that the power 4, including yellow, are now all above the power orange, and Zion is down and under power orange, and that's a classic location pattern for a gap up. And so as long as you've got your other conditions in your identical indicators and in your down touches, then you have a gap up. And this here in the trend chart is an example of a sky touch. Over here is the, this right here would be the first day that trend red crossed over trend green, and so then 1, 2, 3 days later we end up with a gap up, and that's just standard classic for a sky touch situation, because the trend red normally, trend red, green, and gray normally down touch either the trend trio, blue, pink, and yellow, or they down touch 0, or they down touch underneath 0. With the trend red, when it crosses over 0, it will continue to go up when you have the other conditions that define it as a gap up. As you can see over here, we had a crossover 0, but we don't have any conditions. The lines are all mixed, and actually you can tell through with the power 4, the power 3 have all crossed under 0, so there's very little likelihood of a possible gap up, or a turnaround is what I'm trying to say. And obviously the next day, green did cross under, but likewise all the power lines are remaining under 0, so it stays down. The other one that we just got through is basically the identical situation. Now on this green vertical line, this is June 29th, 2017, and as you can see, this is July 6th, 2017 when I'm talking with you. And in this case here, on the green vertical line day, the pink, blue, and white, the pink, blue, and yellow have crossed over the orange line. So technically we don't have the power 3. We actually have white that has not made it over, that hasn't crossed over. But again, it is over at this point, and then you have the power 5 with Zion. They are all in a up movement at this point, but they just crossed over the power orange line. And it's we don't see that too often, but we refer to that as a crossover gap. And you'll either have typically the power 3 or the power 4 crossing over, and then it'll be followed by a gap. Sometimes it'll gap on the day that all 4 of them cross up and over too. So there's just a number of things that can happen in gaps. That happens to be one example, but that are 2 examples with the same idea. But this, I wanted to keep this video on the Zip Blue lowest, and so at this point we will see you on the next video.